We love hip hop.
Yes, sir.
What's good?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm good. I can't complain, man. Can't complain.
You got the nice camera going on over there too, 4K?
Just a laptop.
Okay. Yo, you got a pretty crisp camera going on over there, man.
Yeah, man.
Yo,
try to be semi-professional.
Yeah, man. And, thank you for doing this quick fast before we even get into this, man. I really appreciate this. It's kind of reminiscent of when you guys were doing the Drink Champs quarantine version and you had the multiple cameras going on different angles. That was very nice touch.
Same setup, and we would just have our camera crew go to each of us, send a couple cameras to catch the behind-the-scenes angles. But this is the same setup I was doing, my quarantine champs.
Dope. Well, listen, let's get into it. You know what I mean? I know we have limited time. We got the legend, you know what I'm saying? Legendary Miami DJ, connector of different people in the culture, okay? Because you're not just a DJ, you know what I'm saying? Executive producer, filmmaker, podcast host, DJ EFN in the mother effing building. You know what I'm saying?
What's going on, man? Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And you know what? Let me do this correctly. DJ Eric Fernando Narciandi in the building.
Right. The full on government. Yeah.
Yeah. Listen, there's something that I always, when I'm watching Drink Champs, okay, and I'm watching people talk about Drink Champs, I'm wondering if this bothers you. DJ EFN.
Yeah, I mean, I'm human. Of course, you want people to say your name right, but ever since I've been doing mixtapes in the early '90s, and people would just they just read it that way. They would say EFN. People would beg me to put dots between the letters, put hyphens, and I'm like, nah, man, it doesn't look as aesthetically good. So I've been hearing that forever. And I mean, there's people that know me.
Yeah.
That can't help themselves but say effing. It's crazy. I don't. Yeah, and on Drink Champs it's hilarious because you hear me say my name right in front of you, and then you say effing. So I mean, it's whatever. I'm used to it. Look, man, I come from a place where I'm just happy to be here. I'm happy to contribute to the culture, and the fact that people are trying to say my name, man, it's a win for me. That's the way I look at it.
Nah, man, you're right, and that's the blessing. Let me make sure my Bluetooth is off here, quick, fast as well. Let's go into. I want to be going a little bit all over the place. I want to do a little bit of a history, and we're both podcasters here, so we can talk shop maybe a little bit, right?
Absolutely. Recently,
there was reported that you guys got Drink Champs, being you guys, the Warner deal. So can you explain, because you guys have Revolt, you have Tidal, you have a few different things going on. So how does that come into play?
Yeah, that's one of the things I'm most proud of in terms of what I think Drink Champs has accomplished. Specifically, I would say for podcasts, but I can't speak for all genres. I only know more about the hip hop podcasting world. So I say that we've definitely trailblazed for hip hop podcasts, if not all podcasts.
Yeah.
In the types of deals that you can get as a podcaster. And with this specific deal, we have our different ways that we distribute the content partitioned in different deals. So Revolt is they're a television deal. We have a shorter version of the show that comes out on TV, on regular linear TV, and then they put it out on digital, which is YouTube. They control the YouTube side of it. So that's our visual deal, let's call that. And then we've had our audio side, which is, the traditional podcast. And that's always had its own deal. And then at one point, like you mentioned, Tidal, we're no longer with Tidal. We had a subscription version. So we had 3 deals at one time.
Wow.
Because Tidal was subscription, and the traditional audio deals that you would get, they sell ads. So we could do the Tidal subscription deal because they're not selling ads.
Right.
And then we could have the other deal. So we were with iHeart as of recently with Black Effect, Charlamagne. They got shout out to them. They were amazing. They're great. We didn't leave them because of anything wrong. We just got a great offer. And nobody could beat the offer. And it was with Warner. And basically it's just an straightforward audio deal. But what's cool about this deal that sets, again, is a game changer, I think, for everybody, is that in this deal, there's layers where they want to exploit more of the brand. They want to give us opportunities within the big Warner machine.
Interesting.
So whether it's television and TV production, whether it's merchandising through them, whether it's a record label through them, they are open and want to actively. That's like a part of the deal. I mean, obviously, the regular podcast has to work first. You know, like we're not going to come out the gate doing all these different things, but that's a part of the deal.
And it's interesting because they're a record company, right? Essentially.
Right. Well, I mean, they're a multimedia
yes.
company. They do film and everything else. Yeah.
But is that like a new thing? Like, are you guys trailblazers as far as like, you know, multimedia companies or, you know, people who are known for being record companies getting into the podcasting game?
Well, I'll tell you who was already there was Rap Radar.
Oh, yeah.
The thing is that a lot of these companies create subdivisions that you won't know that it's straight up Warner. Like the name of the company that's doing podcasting for Warner's Interval Presents. That's the name of the company. When we were with CBS, that was our first distributor. Their subsidiary that did all the podcasting was called, oh man, I forget now. I forget the name. But it wasn't CBS. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't CBS Radio.
Yeah. No, that's super interesting, man. I feel that it's educational also for a lot of the people who watch both of our networks who are up and coming podcasters as well, right? And you know, you've mentioned Toronto multiple times in your podcast. Like when the city Toronto comes up, you're like quick. You'll throw out some names. You'll be like Cardinal, Chauclair, and I'm just like, look at this. This is a real hip hop head. What's your connection to Toronto? Like, have you been here a few times back in the days?
I mean, I've definitely been there. I love the city. I've interacted with several artists. The thing for me, though, being that I'm from Miami via Los Angeles. I was born in Los Angeles, so and I still have family there. So I have roots in LA, the West Coast. I'm growing up in the South, in Miami specifically. And so my hip hop tastes are vast. Like I never looked at hip hop as a regional thing. Like I'm only going to listen to this if they from this area, from my area.
Yeah.
To me, hip hop was a thing. Like if it's dope, it's dope. And I didn't have to know first where you were from. I just needed to know first that you were dope. Mm-hmm. And then if where you were from was something different, that was better to me. Like, you know, to find out someone was from some obscure city over in the United States, like, oh damn, they got ill MCs. And that was the thing where like I would hear these MCs that were from Canada and I didn't know they were Canadian at first.
Yeah.
You know, until I started hearing more things being said. And that's how it was, man. And I actually met Cardinal in Jamaica during one of the How Can I Be Down conventions. That was the first time we had a run-in with each other, and he was passing out his white label at the time. Actually, I think I took a picture and posted it and showed it to him. But that's where I met him, and he became one of my favorite MCs of all time. Like I think he's one of the illest, to be honest with you. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And then being from Miami, also I have a lot of Caribbean influence. So I really dig the whole Caribbean side of things. You know, having the patois in there and all that stuff. So you know, and we grew up. And this is the era of like the 90s. Any hip hop head from like the early 90s always was around reggae and dancehall, because the two, like when you went to a party or a club, it was hip hop, reggae, and dancehall. You know what I'm saying? Like they were hand in hand. So even if you wasn't trying to be a fan of that, like you became a fan of that because that's where you would find hip hop. And I was well versed as a DJ in dancehall just as much as I was in hip hop.
Nice. And you know, you mentioned LA and Miami, right? You moved from LA relatively like around 11 years old, right?
Yeah. Like finally stayed. I came back and forth, but I finally stayed around that time. Yeah.
So why the move?
My parents, they got divorced. They got separated when I was really young. Mm-hmm. My dad, he moved to Miami. I joke around saying, you know, if anybody's seen like the documentaries of Cocaine Cowboys about Miami in the 80s, you know, my family were Cuban. So my dad he was a Vietnam veteran, war veteran, Marine. And then he went to a accounting school, like through the GI Bill or whatever they had. And then when my parents got separated, he came to Miami in the heydays of the 80s and quickly, you know, got access to capital and was doing things. So, you know, I like to say I know that he was up to some shady stuff, but he was definitely like the business dude doing things. And so he moved out here. And then my parents tried to work it out. So my mom would come over and they'd try to work it out, but it wasn't going to work. And that's why I said we would go back and forth. And then finally my mom just stayed out here because it was just like those moves. Imagine it, especially back then, like to do those big moves, from one coast to the other.
Yeah.
It just got tiring. So my mom we just stuck it out here.
Yeah. And you became a staple in Miami over time, right? Like maybe around 2000, or not 2000, but around the time you were 17, you started your own business or your own label, Crazy Hood. Shout out to our sponsors, Astro Pink, always coming with that loud. Check them out on their website, myastropink.com, or you can hit them up on Instagram at astro_pink. If you know, you know. Right? Like in high school.
Right. In 93, we're celebrating our 30 years as a crew and as a company. So yeah, I had my crew and we were graduating high school, 93. And I'm like, damn, what do I want to do in my life? And the only thing I had a passion for was for hip hop. Like that was my passion. And I just couldn't see myself doing anything, with any intention if I didn't have passion for it. So I was like, look, man, like what I thought was dope about hip hop at the time is that it was still early on in hip hop. I mean, granted, New York and different places is big, Atlanta's popping, but I'm saying as a national and global scene, it's still early. And then locally in Miami, super early in terms of like, we didn't have an industry. We didn't have a lot of things going on. And not a lot of identity too. So I was like, yo, I think this is something that we can get in there and we can contribute to the local scene. That was my goal in creating my company. Let's just contribute to this local scene and let's try to make the city, put on for the city, make the city proud. And that was the goal in 93.
Yeah. And you guys, that company evolved. Like you guys, it turned into a clothing store. There was a whole bunch of different iterations of Crazy Hood. Can you give us a little bit of the history of Crazy Hood as it evolved?
Yeah. I mean, when we started, there was no game plan other than what our mission statement was to put on for the city. So we didn't have any money. We were broke kids. My friends was hustling and we were just doing whatever we could. I had my mom's single mother, like we didn't have no papers. There was no capital, nothing we could do. But so the first thing we did is we threw a party because in that time, it's just to go somewhere where you could hear hip hop was a big deal. Yeah. So we ended up throwing this party and it was big around the city. It got shot up. Some like local gang members with some other local crew got in beef and it got shot up and the cops were like, yo, if we ever see this Crazy Hood thing on a flyer again, we're shutting you down immediately.
Damn.
But whatever. Lucky to say, we kept it moving from that point on. But, the goal was at that point to make music, to put together a group, to create like an independent record label or get a deal for the group. And we did all of that early on. But what I realized quickly, and luckily that it was quickly, is that pipe dream of like, yo, we're gonna go in the studio, we're gonna make a record, we're gonna press up the record, we're gonna go platinum, we made it. That wasn't gonna happen. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So I realized that if we were gonna stay in this lane and try to do anything hip hop related, anything music related, we needed to diversify. And that's where all these different ideas were. We're like, all right, let's do this store. We Miami and especially where we were at, we needed like a good hip hop. So we had a couple, but we needed more little spots where, kids could go and they could buy the spray can tips. They could buy the mixtapes. They could buy vinyl. They could buy the gear that wasn't available easily at the time, Yeah. So we did that. And then after that, we started a marketing company and consulting. And I just kept growing the branches of this tree to keep funding the dream to stay in it, and that's what it was all about.
And you started even with the management and stuff like that too. Like you,
right,
early in the game, like you managed a Miami group named Mayday.
Yeah, Mayday. I mean, up to recently too. I actually stopped managing them because I got so crazy with Drink Champs. But as of in recent years, we got Mayday signed to Tech Nine, his record label, Strange Music. Yep. And I had Cardinal do a joint with them, which is dope. And I had a bunch of people. Black Thought did a joint with them, and all kinds of artists. And so you have Mayday, my artist Garcia, who's now a big music and video director. And you know, I managed all my artists. I managed them. I did a stint managing kind of Nore for a while too. I managed and tour DJ'd at the same time.
Yeah, that's I guess that's how you guys started getting closer, which you've eventually evolved into Drink Champs.
Yeah, I mean that was part of the evolution. We met, me as a mixtape DJ, him coming into Miami, promoting. He was doing the promo tour for Capone Noriega, the CNN, the War Report.
Okay.
And Capone was locked up. This is like '97. I had my store Crazy Goods. And at that time, the internet wasn't really a place where you promoted things. You had to go physically to like stores, like record stores or clothing stores. So you could tell people, I'm gonna be in town, be here tonight, you know?
Yeah.
And that's what we did. The promoter brought him through my store and we connected. And I had a 4-track that I had artists do freestyles for my mixtapes.
4-track.
And so I had him do a freestyle. He killed it, and I already knew about Capone and Noriega and Nore, so we was already ahead of it, and he did the freestyles, and we connected, bro, and it was crazy. We there was something there that we just connected, and then I did his first solo show in Miami. I brought him down for the NO.RE album, and then they hired me to do the show for Capone when he got out of prison. The Capone Home show,
yeah,
I did that for them in Miami. So like, you know, it just kept, you know, the relationship kept growing and growing.
Oh, that's dope, man. And even like before Drink Champs started, like in 2012, you started a movement, right? You went to Cuba, and from that trip to Cuba, you started the Coming Home series. So can you tell us about that series?
Yeah, I mean, look, around that time that you're describing, you know, I felt like there was a part of me that was like jaded by the industry. You know, I'm heavily involved, obviously, on terms of like the industry, but I by no means do I like the industry in terms of what I feel it does to the culture. You know, so I was getting jaded. I was kind of turned off. I wasn't feeling inspired anymore. I felt like, you know, hip hop kind of got hijacked by the money making machine and was getting, you know, dumbed down and watered down and perverted. And so I was kind of down. And so between managing Mayday, which kind of was a different change for me because they were like a hip hop band, kind of like, you know, like the Roots in a sense, that was different. And then I turned my eyes on my roots and say, man, I want to go to Cuba. Because it was kind of like taboo for if you know the Cuban community, especially the Cuban community in Miami, very diehard right wingers that you don't go to Cuba. It's communist. If you spend money there, you're communist. Like you just don't do it.
Wow.
And I was like, man, I want to do it. You know, I don't want to, you know, let too much time pass and not seek the Cuba that my parents might have been in. You know, like the time capsule that it was in. So I was like, I want to go to Cuba. And then when I finally decided I was going to go, I wanted to connect with the hip hop heads in Cuba. Because I already had heard about a dope hip hop scene in Cuba. And that's what we did. We put together this amateur film. I had never done a film. Me and my boy Garcia, we went out there and we came back. We put this film together and bro, we created magic. And it like reignited my passion for hip hop, believe it or not. And that's what every film has done. Like every time I go to these different countries to connect with the hip hop scene, and kind of see it at its basics, at its roots, as to where we started, it reinvigorates me, man, and reminds me why, you know, I have such a passion for the culture.
Oh, that's a blessing, man. And even with like Drink Champs in the early stages, right? Can you give us like a little bit of a preview of like how the CBS beginnings were? Because I was listening from back then, like from episode 1. Right?
With Fat Joe.
Yeah. So I've heard how the sound evolved and everything. You know what I'm saying? Like, what was it like when you guys decided, okay, we're going to do a podcast, and like you connected with CBS like from the jump, dude?
Well, I don't know if you remember or if you ever heard or saw anything, but we had a show on Sirius, on XM radio before they even merged, and then Sirius XM. And we had a weekly show in like, don't hold me to these dates, but it was around 2008, something like that.
Right. I never heard, but I've heard you talk about it in interviews. Yes.
Yeah, it was called Militainment Crazy Raw Radio. I always like to say Nore named it that. So,
Sounds like
all right, he wanted to put he wanted to put everybody's titles in the title. So we used to do that out of my studios, and we did it weekly. It was an hour show. We had my boy DJ KANYE spinning a set, and it looked and sounded just like Drink Champs. It was Drink Champs before Drink Champs. We stopped doing that. Nore went on tour. I went on tour with Mayday, and we just got busy doing things that actually were bringing in revenue.
Yeah.
Like, that show didn't make us money. So I remember I was like, damn, man, I want to do something just like that, man. It was a lot of fun doing it. And my boy, his name is Godfrey, he had this podcast called Gamer Tag Radio. It was like a hip hop gaming podcast, and it's been around forever. And he always told me, man, you should do that as a podcast. What you and Nore was doing should be a podcast. Long story short, different people were hitting us up every year like, yo, y'all want to do a podcast? And Nore didn't really know what a podcast was. I would tell Nore, he's like, I don't know about that. You know, it's like some internet nerd shit. And so it took me forever to kind of convince him. And then I finally was able to convince him. And that same homie, Godfrey, he had got distribution through CBS Radio. And he's like, yo, you want me to connect you? And I was like, yeah. And they were like, CBS Radio was like, well, you need to do 2 pilot episodes, at least 2 for us to see what the concept is. We did Fat Joe and Kenny Anderson. Kenny Anderson was actually the first one we recorded. And Fat Joe was the second day. And we turned those in, and they were like, yo, this is great. And so they offered us a deal. And then besides all of that I'm telling you, the term Drink Champs was something we were saying in the studio in the early 2000s. Me and my crew, because, if you couldn't handle your liquor, we were big drinkers. That's always been a thing. It was never a gimmick. I don't advocate for people to be drunks or drink or destroy their livers. I really don't. Yeah. But it was something we did. It was legit. This is what we did. We would drink, in the studio. We were drinking all the time. And if you couldn't handle your liquor, we would say, you're not a drink champ. That was what we would say to each other. We even have hashtags from early social media saying drink champ, And so I remember I loved the way that sounded. And I was like, man, that could be anything. That could be a bar. That could be a clothing line. I don't know. And I'm like a GoDaddy pimp. I will go on GoDaddy, if anybody knows GoDaddy.com, where you buy the websites. And I grabbed drinkchamp.com and drinkchamps.com. And then I went on, Twitter and IG and started grabbing up all the social handles. And then fast forward a little bit more. Then I started saying, hold up, we could name the podcast that. Then I got my homie, Scam, who's a legendary MC and artist who did the cover art for Tribe Called Quest, Beats, Rhyme, and Life. He did the stuff for Eminem, the Slim Shady LP, all the artwork in there. I mean, he's done those. That's 2 of a bunch of stuff that he's done. And he had a joint with Eminem as well. He did I told him, yo, could you create something for me? He created the logo, which I think is iconic at this point. And then when that CBS radio deal came, Nore was like, yeah, that sounds big. Like CBS, he's like, that sounds big. Yeah. And then I was like, all right, well, I got the name, Drink Champs. I got the logo. And he's like, all right, let's go. And then that's the birth of Drink Champs.
No, man, I when the pod first popped on the scene, and I was just from the logistics sound point, when I was just like, CBS, I was like, wow, I didn't even know CBS was into distributing podcasts and stuff like that.
Right.
So from the beginning, you guys have always been like kind of the first or some of the first on the scene to do different things in the podcast game to help people learn from y'all. You know what I mean?
Right. Oh, and by the way, I remembered it's Play.it was the name of the subsidiary of CBS Radio. Weird name. Play.it. And Rap Radar was there too.
Yeah, you guys have been like, you and Rap Radar have been like kindred cousins.
It's the return. Yeah, it's the return of us being label mates.
Yeah. And you know what? I got to say this quick fast. Shortly after you guys started your podcast, I started mine back in 2017. As an I was inspired by you guys, Joe Budden. You know what I mean? We're the most smoked out podcast, the world's most smoked out podcast, right?
Okay.
It's become to the point where people are like, well, I don't smoke. I don't know if I can be on your show. I'm like, you don't have to smoke, dude.
Don't you hate that, man? All the time, man. Oh, I don't really drink. You don't have to drink. We'll drink. Just don't mind us drinking.
Exactly. Like I've seen multiple episodes of you guys with people who I know don't drink, and it was a great episode, right?
Right.
One episode though, I will have to ask about. What happened to the Yay episode, bro?
All right, let's see how much of this I can dive into, because it is. I could make a documentary about everything that transpired with the Kanye episode.
Yeah.
In short, to not drag it on into too deep of a thing, and maybe I want to do a documentary, so I don't want to go too crazy with it, but we filmed it on one day. Like, Ye called it, Nore. He hit him up. He's like, "Yo, I want to film with you guys tomorrow," which is the same way the first Ye episode happened. He's like, "I want to film tomorrow."
Yeah.
In the morning. So, boom, we get Nore hits me. He's like, "Yo, you guys ready?" We already knew, though, that he had already been kind of talking a little crazy stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So we knew it. Like, so, we both said, all right, let's hear him out. But this is the thing. And we got to take emotions out of it.
Yeah.
The way I looked at, Ye, he comes in with respect. He's polite. He treats everybody in the crew well. Like he doesn't come in with any kind of attitude. Like, so I'm going to treat someone the way they treat me. And he came in there, and at the same token, I want to give someone the opportunity to speak their mind.
Yeah.
Now, again, Drink Champs is not a political show. We're not, regardless of what Nore says, we're not journalists. We're not trained journalists. The show was built to give flowers to people and celebrate the culture. Mm-hmm. So to dive into some of this political and religious stuff, it gets, for us, I think it's uncharted waters. And we kind of really don't know how to handle it. So we had him on. We let him talk his piece in the beginning. We kind of let, if you see how Ye is, you kind of sometimes have to let him. He wants to get things out.
Mm-hmm.
He goes into these long-winded rants, and so you got to let him.
Stream of consciousness.
And we did, and yeah, and then I feel after a lot of the stuff that he just wanted to get out, then we had like more of as normal of a Drink Champs as you can with Ye.
Yeah.
In the second half of the episode. Now, what happens is that there's a piece of that was never supposed to be in the edit, which is the George Floyd stuff that he said.
Mm-hmm.
We already knew that was a no-no. He even knew. I'm going to put that on there. Like, he said, "Yo, take that out." Like, he was just like going.
Yeah.
And that was supposed to come out, and our editors there was a mishap, because it was being turned around in 24 hours, the episode. It was being rushed. So there's nobody checking it. There's nobody reviewing it. And the editor, there was another part of George Floyd that was mentioned, just a conversation. And he took that part out, and he didn't take this part out. And so that's the part that goes viral, causes a lot of backlash, rightfully so. And then, our partners who backed us, who put it out, we're like, look, we would like to edit stuff out of it. And they were like, it either stays up or it comes down. We're not going to, edit anything because we backed you, so it's like, ultimately at the end of the day, there's just all these conspiracies, that either the Jewish community told us to take it down or this. I'm going to tell you right now, none of that is true. It was Drink Champs that had to make the difficult decision that we knew that taking it down was not going to win, mm-hmm. and leaving it up, we were not going to win. But ultimately, at the end of the day, we hurt George Floyd's family's feelings, and that was important to us. Like, it wasn't important to hurt them. We didn't mean for that to come out, and that was more important to us.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That we'd actually hurt these people who had already been hurting and are hurting, and we said, you know what, let's take this down, knowing that it's still kind of out there and on the thing, but officially Drink Champs, we are taking it down. And that's what happened.
You know what? And I commend you guys team on that decision. I think that was a good decision in the end of the day, in my opinion. Right. Listen, in the end of the day, it's just the opinion of two podcasters, but like,
right.
I feel that it was a good decision to take it down because it's more trouble up than just not having it there in the first place. In my opinion.
Right. I mean, I understand every argument in the world, but ultimately at the end of the day, we took our own decision for ourselves, and it was more of a personal connection to, knowing that the family was hurting, and we wanted them to know it was from us. We're taking this down officially. And so that's all it was. But then, you have the conspiracy world saying, the Illuminati weighed in and took it down. And I mean, I have heard crazy things, which I haven't verified, that Google was going into Google Drive and deleting it for anybody that had it in their Google Drive.
Wow.
Anybody that had downloaded it. Now, I can't confirm nor deny that. I even heard Joe Rogan mention that specifically about Drink Champs, about Google. I don't know. I'd never, my thing is, once all that craziness happened, man, I focused to the future and I let that's the past. And I got to keep moving forward, and let's do right by the culture and continue to do what Drink Champs does. We can't fix that. Let's move forward.
Yeah, man. And you guys are important to the culture. We need y'all completely intact, no way canceled. You know what I'm saying? Continuing to give out flowers to our legends. You know what I mean? And just last couple of questions I have here for you. Speaking of legends, right? You guys, you've interviewed a lot of people and you've toured, you've done a lot, you've met a lot of people. But there has to be one time that you fanned out where you're like, oh, man,
absolutely.
I'm lost for words. Oh, shit. You know what I mean?
I mean, I almost fanned out, a lot of times, to be honest with you. But I would say there's been two main ones that I've fanned out on. Ice Cube, which and it's crazy because he was on the first time and it was a short interview because he was doing a promo run for a film and we caught him in Atlanta and we did it in a hotel room and his publicist was like kind of rushing us through the episode. But growing up, Ice Cube was my favorite MC of all time. It was my favorite in NWA. NWA is one of my favorite groups. Him as a solo artist, one of my favorites. So to have him in front of me, I could say I was like nervous. That was the first time I was actually like nervous. Like, oh, damn, this is Ice Cube, the icon in front of me. And then, unfortunately for me, we interviewed him again during Rock the Bells, but my flight didn't, it got canceled last minute, so I didn't make it.
Damn.
But Nore was there on his own with Cube. And so Cube was one, and then the other one, Patti LaBelle, man. How can you not?
The queen.
How can you not? Like, anybody of that stature, an icon like that, because, if anything, you got to think about it. Hip hop is kind of like, it's on the backs of these people that have been there before. And even if they're not necessarily hip hop, but hip hop is built off of these, icons and what they created. And so, man, and she's just, it's like history right in front of you, living history. Yeah, man, she was another one for sure.
That's dope, man. Listen, man, I don't want to keep you too long. There's just a couple of just off-brand questions that I have in my mind for you as a DJ. Mm-hmm. Do DJs still break records, dude?
That's a great question. Look, I don't think I'm qualified at the moment to really, really, really answer this because I'm not an active DJ like I used to be.
Yeah.
I'm in media now. I'm an entrepreneur. I got my turntables right in front of me, and I'm in my office, and my turntables are right there. But I'm not out there gigging and making my living off of DJing anymore. But from my point of view, and part of the reason why I pivoted from mainly DJing is because I feel that DJ culture as it was is no longer around.
Yeah.
To me, the DJ is one of the most important components of hip hop. And when it came to the mixtapes, which I was a part of, mix show DJs on the radio, the club DJs, I remember the time where you didn't question what the DJ played. If the DJ played it, you rocked with it. It had to be dope, where now it feels like the DJ is a glorified jukebox, and as at the whims of playlists and has to play certain songs, and you can go anywhere in the country and almost hear the same songs in the club, same songs on mix show. And to me, that's sad. You know what I'm saying? Like, I would love to go to another part of the country or another country altogether and hear stuff that's local to there, that's popping, or flavors of hip hop that just resonates in that area. And I don't get that as much anymore. And that's my point of view. I might be wrong. I might be wrong that it's not as bad as it seems.
No, I've asked a multitude of DJs this question. You know what I mean? As a hip hop network over here in Toronto, we've talked to the breakers, to the DJs, to everybody. And I've asked this question, and we pretty much get the same answer all the time. The internet is pretty much the breaker of records at this point. You know what I mean?
Yep. No, it is.
But listen, man, DJ EFN, I really, really appreciate you having this conversation with me. I don't get to see a lot of interviews with you online when I was doing my research. I found a few, right? But I feel that this right here, we got a concise piece of content where people will get to learn about you and get to catch up on everything that you got going on. You know what I mean?
Appreciate it, man.
Oh, that train in the background, the Elliot train. What is
the
that
Elliot
train?
Wilson train.
Is there are you guys filming near a train station or something like that?
Well, that's in the older episodes. I would say that was that was probably around year 1 and 2. Well, so when we, like I said, when we went to CBS, Rap Radar was there.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like this friendly competition thing with Elliot Wilson and Rap Radar. And so when we started filming at this spot that there was a train track next to it in an area called Little Haiti in Miami. And we were filming there and a train would randomly come by. And as a joke, it would usually come by at the most like when we asked an important question or something, and or the guest was giving us a great answer, and so we would say, "Oh, here's the Elliot Wilson train coming to ruin our interview." You know, they hating on us.
I'm like literally like hearing the in the background. I'm like, what the hell? That was.
Sorry, I missed you. What'd you say?
I would literally hear the in the background of the when I was listening in my earbuds. I was like, there must be filming in a train station. Or a track.
Yeah, no, we got a kick out of that, and we jokingly said now that we're label mates with Rap Radar again, you might get the return of the Elliot Wilson train again.
I mean, we just might. You might have to just add it into the audio just because.
Right, for sure.
But yeah, man. Once again, thank you for doing this with us here today. And you know what I forgot to do? Salute to my sponsors, Astro Pink. If you know, you know. Check them out on their website, myastropink.com, or on their Instagram, astro_pink. DJ EFN, man, much blessings to you and continued success in all of the things that you got going on. Crazy with the Crazy Hood, the 30-year anniversary, more Drink Champs episodes on the way. I'm looking forward to it, man.
I appreciate it. Happy Hip Hop 50 to all of us and to the culture. And man, look, keep doing what you're doing, man. I'm glad that we were some kind of inspiration. That's all I could hope for doing what we do.
Yeah, man. Thank you, man.
We love hip hop.